Hi there, it's Brian Sebastian, Movie Reviews and More, Women's Broadcast TV Network, WomenOnTV.tv, and iTunes 247 out of Tennessee. So here we are, part two. Got to start with fellow journalist, movie critic, good friend Mike Szymanski in Los Angeles. Have to start with my other good friend. Can I say sexologist? Can I say all of that stuff to you, Nancy? Dr. Nancy Sutton Pierce. Nancy, introduce yourself because you have a whole line of stuff that you actually do.
I do. Well, I think most of all, I'm a health and wellness practitioner. So from nursing to diabetes education to yoga therapist to sexologist to event creator, retreat leader, and private practice. So, you know, it's a very holistic approach to human relationships, including the one we have with ourselves.
See, and I like that because I don't know
that's what I do.
Everything that you have. And I think that's really, really important because not only do you put on, classes, sex educational classes, a psychologist and everything on a cruise ship or going to hedonism and things like that. I think that stuff is great. So we were talking in the last show how the world has changed, how you weren't able to go on those cruises, how you weren't able to put on those workshops. How do you think you'll be able to do stuff now since where we are? Because this is not going away. Telecommunications is here to stay.
Right. Well, the first thing I've been doing is my private practice virtually has expanded tremendously. So my client base has probably quadrupled with virtual counseling. The other thing I'm doing is I'm creating a 12-part series on sex throughout our lifespan. So the thing I find is a lot of people don't understand natural evolution of our human sexuality, our desire, our physical desire, our mental, emotional desires, our physical abilities, how our pleasures change. And so I've been teaching a program in conferences called Sex Through the Ages, but I'm doing it a 12-part series where I'm breaking it down into life stages, and so that people have a much deeper understanding. And I'm hoping a lot of teenagers take my class because I think it'll save them a lot of grief down the road.
We were talking about teenagers earlier on in the last show. The situation, how do you see their world changing now? Because the world has changed and they're not going to like it. Whether it's protesting out there, whether it's anxiety, depression, everything, all those things being heightened. What would you say to some of them just in general?
Well, I think one of the main things, because they're already interconnected with technology, that's all they know. So they're, having a Zoom gathering is not that big of a deal. It's not a stretch. They've been doing Snapchat groups and they've been, so that for grown-ups, especially people in my era, a lot of people are just like, oh my God, what do I do? How do I run this thing? There's a lot more chaos involved. It's pretty natural for them. And they've been more physically disconnected as in their adolescence than we ever have been. That's a natural state for them. I think what they're missing is, like the rest of us, the sense of freedom. The freedom to roam, the freedom to travel, the freedom to just go out to the lake with your friends, or, and so I think that's been hard for them. And now we get into the dating world, how do you date outside of your pod? And so I think that's, it's good. It's bringing us back to a lot of basics about human nature, basics about relationships and interpersonal connection. And what do we really need and what do we want to get out of those?
That's true. It's the experience with my nephew, obviously, with just graduating and turning 18. It hasn't affected him as much as it has my sister and I, who are saying, "Oh, you didn't have prom like we did. You didn't have the march down the in the stadium like we did." And it's sort of like, well, this is the way it is, and they're kind of okay about it. And
right.
So yeah, you're right, totally about that. Their connection is it's affecting a lot of us more than it is them. And maybe some of their anxiety is because we have anxiety that they're seeing.
They're not used to seeing their adult people so distraught, you know, much of the day and freaking out about the what ifs. And so, yeah, I think that we're not helping them out with that.
Yeah.
You know, the interesting thing is the 5 states that I'm watching has always been Georgia, Florida, Louisiana, Arizona, and Texas. Those 5 red states, 1, 2, 3 of them didn't close down properly. Yeah, and I'm still talking to these people from them. A lot of the clubs, the sex clubs, were still going on, and my mouth dropped when I heard that. They started back up. The one did stop, and I'm like, this is not good. No matter which way you see anything, you know. And now Vegas this weekend, you know, the pools and everything open. It's been 107 degrees, and like I said, I haven't been anywhere. I've been to the park. They just clear my head to be around nature on my Segway. I go to Vons, I go to the 99-cent store to get cat food, and that's it. Or else I'm looking at these people not wearing masks, and I'm like, this is going to come back to haunt you guys. I knew before you guys, all this stuff was going on, and you guys are acting like it's just another day in paradise. That freaks me out. I feel sorry for the place that they have to go back to, and I call them super spreaders because that's what they are.
Yeah.
I know you don't want to get too political, but you know, those 5 states that you mentioned all really have a big chance of flipping too. I think they all will flip Democratic, especially Arizona and Georgia, but possibly even Texas. And, you know, the other thing that I see a lot is there was a lot of public shaming for people who are wearing masks. I mean, I've heard stories about people yelling at other people, why are you wearing that mask? Oh, you're sissy, or what's the matter with you? And now that our governor has said all of California has to wear a mask when you're outdoors, then, you know, we can go back to them and say, you're the one who's the problem.
Right.
You know, so, and those other people don't have that choice. I mean, I have friends in Florida who are saying, we just know that we're doomed because our governor doesn't care.
I've been posting every day on all my social media outlets, which is ridiculous segments of them, but about the masks. You know, it's like the whole reason for a mask is to protect other people. So if we're all protecting everybody else, then we're all protected. So the idiot that's out there unprotected, their risk is less than what they're providing for other people is a higher risk. And so it's a very self-centered, egocentric kind of behavior that, and now we have a president that says, you know, you're just wearing masks to get back at me. You know, it's like, oh my God, you know, the narcissist in chief is, you know, always about, everything's about him. And we have to remember that it's like wearing a condom, you know. Who are you protecting? Well, you're protecting both of you. You know, it's like, think about it that way. It's just a mouth condom. So put the damn thing on. And, you know, the amount of inconvenience, if for anybody that worries about wearing a mask, go work in a hospital for a day, wearing that N95 mask for a 12-hour shift, where you're in all of the gear and you're working with people that are dying and you're sweating and you're miserable but you have to do that to save your life. Go do that for a day and then come back and complain about having to wear a little pretty cloth mask to the grocery store. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Dr. Nancy, can you clarify something for me? Because I want my friends to watch this and hear this, because one of the things I've argued about is that it also protects us a little bit. You know, it's not just protecting other people, but it keeps us. I know that the virus can still get through certain cloth, but is it true that it also helps us a little bit from getting the virus?
There's not a lot of evidence that it's not super protective of us, because most people don't know how to wear masks protective wise. You know, you have this mask on, so if somebody coughs near you and those droplets get on the outside of your mask, when you take your mask off and you touch it,
Yeah.
you just contaminated yourself. So there's a false sense of security about protecting yourself. So I just say to people, this is a shield to keep whatever you've got in, because when that virus is in saliva or in breath, which is water, it's heavy. And so we're trying to minimize how far out it goes. Because if we cough or sneeze or yell or sing, it can go 10, 12 feet. I mean, it can go a long way before it drops. So by having that mask on, it's going to catch those droplets. And then when you take the mask off, you want to take it off carefully, just touch this, and then wash it.
Right.
Don't touch it, don't crumble it up, don't put your hands all over either side of it, because you're contaminating now your hands. And then you touch a surface, or you shake hands, or you touch something that somebody else touches, and that virus can then pass that way. So it really is just kind of keeping those heavy droplets in the mask as much as possible. And then, so then if we all have that mask on, now we all have a much higher level of protection. And we're social distancing, and we're not shaking hands, and we're washing our hands.
It's amazing how much I realize that I touch my face every day. I mean, it's amazing.
Definitely.
I just can't believe it.
Yeah, now we have face touching shame.
Well, the whole thing about all of that was, and again, I really got hope for me. I've always been a clean person. I mean, this house is clean. I mean, the only thing I have to do, and remember, we're in a desert, California, Nevada, Vegas, it's a desert. So you're always supposed to be washing your hands regardless. And the reason I knew how many times I washed my hand going back to 2008 was I was on a ranch, horses, animals, kids coming over, dogs. And I would go in, one time I went in and out the house, we have 5 acres, 53 times in one day. I was going in on average to wash my hands because I love soap, not the hand sanitizers that's got chemicals in it.
Yeah.
Mine doesn't. Ellipto, it's 99.999 kills germs. It's the only hand sanitizer in the world that says that. Remember, I've had it for 5 years. So with the Ellipto on, that's the only one that says it kills the germs. So now I wash my hands about 43 times a day, up from 23 times, because we're still not supposed to wash face. No, it's just common for me. I'm just gotten used to it, the last, 18 years, really, So with all that, I'm just used to it. I just love soap. I just know I'm always doing it, and, that's how I am. And then, as you guys know, when I'm traveling, I have my hand sanitizer. I have my gels. I give it to other people as gifts. I have the restroom kiss. So when you go in the toilets, you have the stuff, you have the little wipes, all of that. Now they have their own hand sanitizer in it because they've learned. And that's why they're helping all the first responders, and their business has quadrupled. I'm honored and happy that, I found them 4 years ago, and that, it's good to see their business growing, but they had no idea it was going to be in there. And I was wanting to get them on the cruise ships last January, in the hotels. I'm still trying to get into hotels. Now everybody pays attention, because when you walk into that hotel, you got to have that hand sanitizer. They're scoping you. They're taking everything,
Yeah.
Talk about what it's like for your clients now. Is it weird to do more interviews, conducting more business on Zoom for you?
No, I think people actually appreciate it because they can stay in the privacy of their home. I have an office, so it's a clinical practice with psychologists and marriage family counselors, but there's a stigma attached for people when they're going to a sexologist. They don't. Most people don't really understand what a clinical sexologist is or does. That it's a real thing. That it's a real doctorate degree, and they just think I had one person say, it must be nice just to have sex all day for your work. And I'm like, I mean, if I'm having sex all day, it's certainly not for my work.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of myths around what sexologist does. One of my granddaughters asked me one time when I first got my doctorate, she says, so Nana, what exactly is a sexologist? Which is a little suspicious. And I said, well, the amount of time I actually get to talk about sex with people is probably only about 2 or 3%. The rest of the time, I'm talking about how to communicate and how to listen and how to pay attention and how to understand yourself well enough to even communicate that. So it has very little to do with sex. But when people come to a sexologist, that, you know, if they're seen in the public, they're, oh my God, you know, what's wrong with them?
Well, you know, the whole thing was like that. Even when you went into the sex clubs, you got to know, you know, do I want to be with this person? Does my partner want to be with this person? Because the women run it. You know, no means no. And it's one of those things where you got to be able to scope the room. Do I want to expose myself? Where's that person come from? It goes back to the testing when Bill Margot created AIM, you know, in 95. I'm like, okay, here's my test. I know who we've been with. Who have you been with? Just because you say you had your thing 6 months or a year ago, that doesn't mean anything. Because as you say, and Mike, you've taken your test now. We need a test every day now, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. In LA, it's getting harder. You know, it was back 2 months ago when nobody was getting tested. It was so easy to just go online and schedule an appointment, go in there. It was like going through a car wash. You know, you drive into a tent, you stay in your car, they come to you, roll down your window, stick the thing up your nose. And then they went over to John on the other side and did it to him. And they've got their gloves and they take them off. It was easy, but you know, I had some friends who tried recently, and it's a little bit harder. And they say that even in LA, it's getting harder to get the tests now. There's not they're asking for more, you know, things like, do you have insurance? And it's harder now. It's harder. And God, the people in Arizona who stood in 8-hour lines in 100-degree heat to get tests.
Yeah, and we have a president that wants to cut back on tests. I mean, there's just a bill going through to try to remove testing centers in many states, and you know, because the numbers make him look bad. And you know, I mean, we're one of the worst countries in the world for this right now, and you know, that's absurd. That is absolutely absurd. We're supposed to be an evolved country, right? And we can't even take care of our people in a crisis. So it's frightening. So people have to advocate for themselves, and they have to, you know, demand. They need to vote this year. Do not sit back and not vote. You know, every vote is going to be counted. So I really, really think we need to be pushing people to speak up and demand from our representatives. Start at your local level. We're going to be calling on Mark and I have a plan to call on our local police to sit down with them and talk about what are their policies. How do they allow chokeholds? What do they do when these things happen? We want to see it in writing. So I think if we all get more involved in our local governments, that's going to trickle up. You know,
and the suspicion of mail-in ballots, by the way, I have been doing it for 30 years in California. It's amazing how you can not only check to see when they receive the ballot back, but you can see when it has been counted online, you know. So it's like this idea that there's going to be massive fraud about that when it's been such a smooth going in California. I've never stood in line for the polling. I've gone to the polling centers just sometimes to see my friends or go with them, but yeah, and there's no way you can vote twice, by the way.
Right.
All of my friends who are from other states, and they're saying, oh, I'm so afraid of this, you know, this voting by mail. And I'm like, it's been so easy here since I moved to California, you know.
Here's the thing, you know, when it comes to that, I know what it's like. I always wanted to be the first and when it comes to voting, because one, I'm a minority. I know, you know, something's going to happen, and it has. When I used to vote in Beverly Hills for years, once I was first in line. Second time I was 7th in line. Third time I was 9th in line. And then I want to be the first again. And I'll just never forget this one Jewish guy, little guy. I was there at like 5 a.m. He beat me in the line. I was so upset, but I was like, good for you, you know. But again, I know what it's like not to have my name on that list. and you have to vote for provincial ballots. And I'm like, I don't like that. I'm like, what happened? Here's my stuff. I sent it, and it always happens. I've had it happen in Canyon Country. I'm like, what are you talking about? I live down the street from here. How do you not have my name on here? Here's my thing. Oh, you can still vote. I'm like, and I would make a scene, and I would be the only Black person there. So, that's not good. But I'm like, how is this not happening? I live right down the street, and the polling place is right here. Are you kidding me? I was not happy about these things. So I would always be there in person. So this time I'm voting by mail, but in general, Black people are coming out. You can't stop them. They will die to go get their vote cast. That's what we know.
I don't know if you saw the news reports, but yesterday, Louisville had only one polling place in the whole city, and they literally closed the doors at 6 o'clock. If you didn't get in, they closed the doors, even though people had been standing in line for hours. They actually pounded on the glass until they opened up the doors. And guess what? Almost everybody was Black who was trying to get in to vote.
But we don't have voter suppression, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when people argue that we don't have voter suppression, why would they do that? You go, you're living in a dream world. They absolutely, because the Republicans have never ever wanted Black people to vote because it doesn't go well for them. And so they do everything in their power to try to prevent that from happening so that they can, they're not winning fairly, It's not because they had the majority. So yeah, I mean, so now we have all this happening. So we have the stress of the riots and the race war, and that we're trying to end. I had somebody say, quit trying to start a race war. And I just laughed and went, oh my God, do you realize that it's been going on for hundreds of years? We're trying to end it. It's just the opposite. And so we have all of this antagonistic energy. And I think that part of why the marches have been so powerful is because people have a lot of pent up energy they need to put somewhere, and they're angry. And so this is a great avenue to bring it out and to give people a place and a purpose to release some of that energy. And I mean, we can see it happening globally, which just absolutely brings tears to my eyes to see how many people of every walk of life are out there fighting the fight. And so that kind of unification, I think if we could bring that kind of energy back home into our relationships and realize that we're all on the same side, the human side, we want the same things. We want to feel safe and loved and protected and free. It could simplify life quite a bit.
Yeah.
How do you think sex education will be taught in school now? What do you think they'll be teaching?
I am so excited about that. I am so excited about that because every school has had to go to online teaching. So every school across the country has had to invest some time and energy into virtual education. What a perfect inroad for me, because my husband was actually saying this the other day. What a perfect inroad to create some virtual programs that could be universally taught in the comfort of kids' own homes.
Yeah.
Where parents could participate. Parents aren't going to be left out, and there could even be a parenting aspect of the education along with the aspect that's more generated toward the age of the kids. And so you're actually teaching the parents and the kids at the same time, but you're also teaching the parents how to teach the kids. So I think it's wide open for us on this one.
Is that uncomfortable for getting parents comfortable to talk about sex with their kids?
I think the kids are more uncomfortable than the parents, frankly. I've had several groups in my Northern California town that have reached out to me, groups of mothers that have got all their daughters together, and they've asked me to come speak to them frankly about sex. And so I go and talk to these small groups of young women from the ages of 12, 13 up to 16, 17. And I just come in, we sit on the floor and we have conversation and we talk about everything. And the girls love it because I'm not their mother. I asked my granddaughters, do you want to come? They're like, no. I know you. So having an unbiased party, give this information, answer questions honestly, and somebody who doesn't have judgment or bias around the topic, I think is critical. And then to help parents kind of deal with their own misinformation, clear that up so that when they're talking to their kids, they're not passing along, my mother told me that girls have periods to get rid of the poisons in their body. So that was the education I got from my mother. So if I hadn't asked more questions, then I might have been passing that along to my daughters. And so I think we have to pause, rethink how we've been taught, what we don't know, and then get educated.
What is some of the weirdest questions or experiences you've had happen in your profession, not only in the U.S., but maybe on one of the cruise ships or maybe going to Jamaica or one of the other countries? When you've been giving your speeches and teaching people the right things to know?
I think the in-person experiences are always so rich and deep emotionally. I make a lot of people cry. People call me the Oprah of sexology because I always make my clients cry. Because what we're tapping into for people is like their deepest part of themselves, where their hopes, dreams, fears, shames, all of that, desires, where it comes from. And so when you open up a person's sex energy and that rawness, you're going to usually get some tears. So that for me, that's expected. I think the harder questions for me come from online, where we're not looking at each other, and they ask me things that are outside of my comfort zone, like about incestual relationships. I'm a 18-year-old boy and I'm having sex with my mother. And I'm like, wow, okay, take a deep breath, because I have judgment around that. And I have to kind of put myself in check to see what I can do with this, what the culture is, where they are, what's happening, and so those things challenge me to the core. When I know that people have pedophilia tendencies, that challenges me. So those kinds of like to do sexually. That's just entertaining.
Wow. I was still stuck on that question that you just said. I was like, because I would have wrote back saying, is this true? And how do you do it at that point, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, you can usually tell if they're gaming you or if it's something they're actually experiencing, But it's not unusual. That's the thing that I had to come to terms with, is that isn't that rare.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What do you have coming up? And then, so what's going on with your regular radio shows, your podcast now?
Well, I put my podcast on hold for a while. It's you can still find them. I've got 10 years of archives of the Conscious Living Show. So it's on iTunes and Podbean, and I think it's been on some of the other outlets, YouTube channels, the Conscious Living Show, and then I also have the Sex Doctor, the Sex Doc. And so those are ways to find me. I'm all over social media: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and if you just go and type in Dr. Nancy Sutton Pierce, something will pop up there. So my private practice is really what I'm focusing on now, and then creating this Zoom 12-week course. So once I do one course, then I can fine tune things and do some other things that are a little bit more, maybe a little bit more fun, a little more spicy for couples. So, because I like to do things like that, that add to healthy couples. It's not always just dealing with people that are suffering.
So for those couples that wanted to spice up something, what would you say to them now? Since they've been, for the ones that are still quarantined that might still be getting along, that, you know, providing the communication was good, because that's what it all boils down to.
I mean, I think a really fun thing to do is to set up a fashion show, you know, because women, we're not getting to go out, we don't get to dress up, we don't, you know, so to take time and put yourself together and put on some of your sexiest things and your high heels and whatever turns you on, whatever makes you feel really erotic, which might just be silk pajamas or whatever, but do some kind of fashion show, do a lap dance for your partner. Do a photo shoot, things that kind of enhance your own sense of sensuality and eroticism and attractiveness. You know, I think a lot of days can go by in quarantine where we don't even take a shower and we're in our pajamas all day. You start to feel kind of schleppy. And so doing something to make you feel good and exercising together. I'm a part of a great course called Sexologist by Sexperts. And it's really yoga for couples. And there were about 20 of us that put this video together with my mentor, Dr. Ava Cadell. You can find it on her website, or Sexologist, SEXYCISES, at sexologist.com. And it has every kind of partner yoga that you can do, from just sitting back to back and breathing and connecting that way to acro flying yoga. I mean, so it's and everything in between. So that's a fun thing to do, to kind of build intimacy, builds communication skills, because you have to really be paying attention to each other, reading body language, listening to your breath, and even just connecting to your breath at times.
Sorry, I got disconnected.
So even when we just connect to our breath, it brings us closer to that sex energy source, which is a good feeling source.
So we got about 3 minutes. So what are you saying, or what are you saying to your single girlfriends, or what are they asking for, since they haven't been able to go out or anything? What's your advice to them?
Buy a Sybian. get toys, give yourself self massages, take baths, really nurture and take care of your body so that you stay connected to your sexuality, daily orgasms. You know, I think we can, you know, when we get lonely, sometimes that sex energy drops down and we forget about pleasure. And I think then when the world opens up or we're with a partner, we have to rev back up to find that connection to our own pleasure. So if we can maintain that through any time of celibacy, where we don't have to be celibate with ourselves, so still hold on to that sex energy and that pleasurable sensation, it's a great time to more fully explore what it is you like now. You know, if people that have been with partners or just always having sex with other people, oftentimes they forget to really identify what they want and how to please themselves. Then when they are with a partner, now they can teach them. And that just makes sex that much better. So daily pleasure practice, I would say.
Well, it's funny.
That goes for both.
I'm going to make sure I tell a lot of my female friends that. So what happens with the single male who can't go and ask the woman for a date now? What advice would you give to them?
Same thing. Learn more about your own pleasure. Learn about your erotic mind, and do so without always using porn. You know, I think porn takes us out of our body we need to get back in massage, touching yourself, put gloves on and masturbate. You know, even like rubber dish gloves. Have that whole different sensation experience. You can do all kinds, choose to be with a partner. We've got if we know how to please ourselves, because nobody else does until we teach them. Right. So if we can have those tools, then when we're in a partnership, everybody's going to have a great time, guaranteed.
Hey, Mike, you got one last question? We got about 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, one of the things I was going to show you was one of my new books is 3 is Never a Crowd, which, you know, we talked about getting into pods and groups together and safe groups. And I think a lot of Dr. Nancy's suggestions and ideas kind of help that, especially in this time of the pandemic.
Yeah. And if you want to add somebody to your pod, just do so consciously. You know, if 2 people are staying home, I've heard this with singles, 2 people are isolating and they're so bored and they're lonely. It's like, get together, you know, get together. You've both been isolated, so you know you're both safe, so get together. You can't give yourselves anything you don't already have, right? So if both of you are safe and healthy, get together. Just make that your pod, at least until you're done. If you're like your friends are bored, okay, back to your spaces, isolate, and then create a new pod.
It's such a simple remedy too, isn't it? Get together.
It is. It is. It's, you know, you just have to be conscious about. There's about a 2-week window. You know, so like when we tell people, if you've been exposed, you need to go to isolation for 2 weeks, regardless of what you test. You know, don't trust the test. Go isolate. And after 2 weeks, then you can get tested to make sure that you absolutely aren't positive. And if you think you've had it, go get the antibody tests so that at least you know if you have. We're also finding out that the antibodies are only good for about 4 to 6 months. So it's not a for sure, well, I'm safe for the rest of my life. That's not panning out at this point. But use that 2-week window to really keep yourself in the clear. And if you both can agree to do that and you trust this person 89%, you know, you can't trust anybody 100%, then connect up.
All right, give your website one last time.
drnsp.com.
Sorry about that. Hey.
The reality of home studios.
Sorry, yeah, my dogs.
Absolutely. One more time, Nancy.
So drnsp.com, as in Dr. Nancy Sutton Pierce.
And Michael, yours?
Here's my other dachshund book, A Dozen Delightful Tales of Dachshunds. And you can find them on Amazon under my name, and also my Mickey Ski books.
And with that, I want to thank everybody, Dr. Nancy Sutton Pierce, Mike Szymanski. I'm Brian Sebastian, Movie Reviews and More, the Women's Broadcast TV Network, womanontv.tv, and iTube 247 out of Tennessee. Thank you so much for this show. This was a fun show. And if you see someone
Great to see you both.
one of yours, because we all need it.